So once again, thank you so much for choosing the launch of Half of Two Paisas, the extraordinary mission of Abdul Sattar Eidi and Bilqis Eidi Saiba. We'd like to formally acknowledge the hard work that these two people have put in social development and upliftment of society in Pakistan. This is definitely a success story worth sharing. We'd like to begin with inviting Madam Amina Sayyed, the Managing Director of Oxford University Press, to express her views about this launch. Ladies and gentlemen, Madam Amina Sayyed.
Assalamualaikum, His Excellency, the Italian Ambassador, Abdul Sattar Eidi Sahab, Tehmina Durrani Sahiba, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum. It gives me great pleasure to launch Half of Two Paisas, the extraordinary mission of Abdul Sattar Eidi and Bilqis Eidi today. Theirs is indeed an extraordinary mission and life about which the world, it's time that the world knew more about. In 2000, Italy conferred the Balzan Prize on Eidi Saab. By introducing Eidi Saab to the West, Italian authors Lorenzo Raponi and Michele Zanzucci have done a wonderful work, and I am delighted to inform you that the author, Lorenzo Raponi, is here with us today, and she has come specially from Italy to join this session. And a very warm thank you to the Italian Embassy and the Italian Consulate for arranging for the author, Lorenzo Raponi, to be here with us today. Lorenzo Raponi attended the Pontifical Institute for Arabic and Islamic Studies in Rome, where she says she learned about the values of compassion in Islam, which I'm sure she found reflected in the Eidis. This book was written originally in Italian and has been ably translated into English by Lorraine Buckley. I'm glad to inform you that Oxford University Press Pakistan has also published a graphic novel on the life and mission of Abdul Sattar Eidi. This work, the graphic novel, is based mainly on the biography of Eidi written by Tehmina Durrani, who is here with us today. So thank you very much, Tehmina, for... It is meant for children. It is currently in Urdu, the graphic novel or comic book. And through it, we at Oxford University Press wish to create heroes for our children, because we feel that it is only through propagating the role models and heroes that we have in our society that we can encourage children to emulate them and to learn from them, and of course to read books. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to speak to you today, and now I would like to invite His Excellency, the Ambassador of Italy, to say a few words. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is for me a great pleasure and an honor to be here today. And I would first of all like to say grazie mille to Mrs. Lorenza Raponi for having accepted the invitation of the Italian Embassy and for deciding to launch the English version of her book, Half of Two Paisas, at the Karachi Literature Festival here today. I would also like to greet very cordially Mrs. Tehmina Durrani. We are honored that such a high-level writing activist has accepted to conduct this book launch. As many here might know, Mrs. Durrani is a very close friend of Italy and has strong ties with our country. She obviously is also strongly related to the promotion of social welfare in her country, in Pakistan, and therefore to stories such as the one of the Eidi Foundation, which inspired Mrs. Raponi's excellent book. I would like to thank her for taking time from her busy schedule to be here with us today. Finally, allow me to say a few words of thanks to the moderator, Mrs. Sidra Iqbal, I admire very much her work and congratulate her on her multiple successes. As mentioned, Lorenzo Rapponi's work, written at four hands with Mr. Michele Zanzucchi, focuses on the story of Abdul Sattar Edhi and Bilkis Edhi, modern heroes of solidarity, on whose extraordinary mission the book is based. Thanks to the inspiring words of Mrs. Rapponi, the commendable work of the Edhi Foundation acquired even more recognition in Italy, it has been mentioned before, and now with the launch of the English version of the book, I hope their extraordinary efforts will be further acknowledged internationally. And I'm happy to see attending the book launch Mr. Edhi here. I would like to publicly commend the work of the Edhi Foundation to improve the lives of the underprivileged in Pakistan. Driving here this morning, I saw one of the hundreds of ambulances that his organization provides to support the ill and needy, a tangible sign of the effectiveness and dimension of the results this work is obtaining. In conclusion, allow me to stress once more, as already mentioned during the opening ceremony this morning, that I'm very proud that Italy is co-sponsoring for the first time this very important event, and that we could enrich this year's program with the presence of two Italian authors. In fact, apart from Mrs. Rapponi, we have amongst us also another talented Italian writer, Mrs. Silvia Di Natale, who will read sections of her wonderful book, Corai, tomorrow afternoon. I would like to invite you all to assist to the readings from her very inspiring book that won in Italy the prestigious literary prize, Bagutta 2001. Thank you all for your very kind attention and for inviting me in today. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the two ladies, and of course the man himself is amongst us. So without any further ado, may I take this opportunity to invite our moderator, our interviewer, and the lady who actually needs no introduction. She is the author of the only narrated autobiography of Maulana Abdul Sattar Edhi. It is the official document of the Edhi Foundation as well. And of course, we all know that she has an international bestseller to her credit. Please join me in welcoming Madam Tehmeena Durrani. And now, of course, as we talk about the launch of Half of Two Paisas, it indeed is my privilege and an honor to invite the lady who has, of course, not only penned this book, but taken the success story of Pakistan to the international arena. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ms. Lorenza Rapponi. And now let's leave the ladies to what we do best, the talking. Over to you, Tehmeena.
Very pleased that all of you have come, especially because Mr. Edhi is among us, and I think that most of us don't have an opportunity to be in his presence at all. So even bigger than the book, or bigger than the book that I have written, or discussing anything about his work, just his presence in this hall is so huge. And the people of Pakistan, for me at least, have not understood who sits among them right now. I feel that that recognition that Mr. Edhi should have got, and would have got had he been in any other country, he has not got from his own country. But why are we clapping about something that we all know is that we have done wrong, and we are not going to do anything to correct it? We're not going to try to either emulate him or become, or even read him, or even understand him, or even read this book, most of us. We're just going to do nothing after this one occasion. And this I think is the loss that this country is suffering from, because we understand, and our awareness is accurate in recognizing that this is important for us, but we will not move with it for it to become something that is beneficial and something that is going to give, something that is going to make it into a greater thing than it already is. We'll do nothing about it. So this is something that we must be very conscious of right at the beginning, before we begin to even talk, because it's because we have not been able to recognize that Idi Sahib is not just a social reformer. Idi Sahib is just not a social worker. He is not a man who is just burying bodies, making orphanages, and has Idi centers at every 25 kilometers of your country, from Saichen to Balochistan. He is an agent of change. And unless we recognize what is this agent of change, we will not be able to participate in changing what has happened to the Muslim people, what has happened to us, what has happened to Pakistan, how our children have turned towards militancy, how we have a crisis of terrorism which nobody knows how to control. We are only going to be able to do it if we recognize that we have before us an example, and that example is humanitarian Islam. That example is Abdul Sattar Idi. Idi, the name Idi is your weapon against militancy, because you have on the one hand a militant example and you have a humanitarian example, but we are not promoting or helping or assisting or making the world understand that we have, that humanitarian Islam is the potent part of Islam which we require to make our children follow and introduce into the Muslim world. And we are only introducing militant Islam, Bin Laden, Al-Qaeda. Where is Idi? That's the opposite. But we are not collectively being able to recognize that this world, the weapon for world peace is humanitarian Islam. So just to begin, that this man is bigger than his social work, he's bigger than Idi Foundation, he's now an agent of change for the Muslim world and for the West to be able to recognize that this is Islam. It's not just jihad, this is jihad. Idi Sahib has done jihad his entire life. This is what is the real jihad of the Muslim world. So my introduction is a little confused, but I'm here for the first time. This is the first public forum that I'm speaking at, and have just come out for the first time publicly in my own country. Also, I wanted to explain to you my idea of Idi Sahib before I start talking about his book here. And I wanted you to recognize that if we leave this room with just an idea of Idi Foundation and Idi and Bilkis and their social work, we will not be able to take it as fast as we would like it to go. For me, this position is a very humbling position always. I can talk of other things, but talking about Idi Saab always humbles me because the man is too big and too great for someone like me to have a position and an authority to be able to discuss him. But I think that he has kindly given me that authority by allowing me to write his official book. So I will now talk to Lorenza. You were in Rome, and you come from Rome. And when did you first hear of Mr. Idi?
I heard about Idi the first time I came to Pakistan in 2001 for a wonderful family holiday of a month, spent traveling through your beautiful country. The holiday was initiated by a dear Pakistani friend living in Luxembourg who invited us to come for a wedding in Karachi. And from the wedding came a holiday plan. From the holiday plan came the meeting with this mythical name of Eddie that everybody hears about. We saw an ambulance. Somebody mentioned his name. We saw pictures on the newspaper. The first interest started like that. And then back in Rome that same year, 2001, a year not to be forgotten, your book was published in Italy
By Mondadori.
The
Mirror to the Blind.
autobiography of Idi was published.
It was called,
translated in Italy. It's called,
La
in Italian it's called
Bella?
the Empire of Goodness.
Empire of Goodness, which
is an apt description of,
Yeah.
of what this is. It's not an economic empire. It's an empire of values that strike us and inspire
Yes.
us. Your book, of course, was the basis for my own book. It was the basis for my interest. It was the beginning of an enormous curiosity. That's why I decided to come to Karachi and ask Mr. Eddie and Bilquis whether I could stay, visit with them, all their centers in Karachi, talk to the guests, talk to the volunteers, the many, many volunteers of this enormous institution, talk to the doctors, and have some time with both of them. It was a difficult time for Mr. Eddie. He wasn't well. I thought nothing would work and I would not be admitted to his presence. And yet something really incredible to my eyes happened. And he admitted us to his house. He let us interview him at length, him and his wife Bilquis. And I thought, really, there's nobody else, certainly not in Italy, certainly not in Europe, of such standing, such moral importance, who would allow a perfect stranger like me to come into his house and ask him questions and take his very, very precious time. But I must say thanks to you for being here, because you really gave us the curiosity and the grounding for understanding in that week of time spent in Karachi.
But do you know that when you say that you read his book, which was translated in Italian, and Mondadori published it, and I think
it was published in 2001 in a collection of books about religious leaders in the world.
Yeah.
So there was an effort on the Italian side to look at important people with strong moral standing in all the different religions.
And as it affected you?
It has affected me personally. I was at that time involved with Michele Zanzucchi in a research on the theme of the Golden Rule, this golden thread that runs through all religions. The core values of our monotheistic religions. And I would like to take you on your words as describing Eddie as a sort of the most positive example in Islam. I would like to say that Eddie is Pakistan, certainly a star for this country, but he is a star for us as well. He's a star for, I would say, for humanity.
Yeah.
We look at him as something we would have to strive towards. If only each one of us managed to get out of our comfort zone, not forever, not for so long, at least for a little bit, we would all be better people. I think this extraordinary couple incarnates the values of peace, solidarity, friendship, overcoming national, cultural, religious barriers. This is what we need for a better world, for a large community.
You know, your president, ex-president Champi, Mr. Idi, and I had gone to have lunch with him in
Really?
Rome, and Madame Champi. And when we were leaving, he said that my home is honored today because we are in the presence of today's Saint Francis of Assisi.
Absolutely.
That was even before the book was published in Italian. So how they had that idea so clearly in their mind, the word about Mr. Idi had spread at some level internationally, but not
It's
so much.
It's still not enough.
Not enough.
For how big he is, it's still not enough. Miss Eddie came to Rome,
Yes.
to Italy in 2007. It's funny that you mentioned St. Francis of Assisi because we went with him
Yes.
to see the Basilica of St. Francis, and I remember him looking at this beautiful Giotto fresco where St. Francis is depicted surrounded by animals and birds with whom he is friendly. He's a saint known for
Yeah.
his friendship with animals. And Eddie so simply and fantastically said, I really feel we could be friends. Through 800 years of history, he recognized someone like him. He said, I like this chap. He looks like me.
So, when we talk about A Mirror to the Blind, translated in Italian, and then you picking up this book and reading it, and finding out about Mr. Idi, because it's a very deep book. It took me 3 years to write, and as you've read it, you understand I spent 3 years with Mr. Idi, most of the time in Idi Foundation, in Idi Home. For me, it was another world also, so, you know, and it was entering a completely different zone, away from your comfort zone. I was confined to writing only what Mr. Idi said, or what he thought, or what he wanted written. And every paper, every page, the Idi Foundation stamped at the end, the manuscript, before it could go into print, and it is also printed by the Idi Foundation. So I was very confined. I could not give my own opinion or my own thought. When I read your book, I was really pleased because it was the first time, after having written and traveled a lot with Mr. Idi for various awards and various places he had to visit with him, but this is the first book that has been written after his autobiography, so that it has taken a step further away, you know, out of his mind. What do we think? What is it doing to people? How are people taking it? How are people connecting with him? Or are they seeing more? Because he's not praising himself, he's just talking about his work in A Mirror to the Blind. You have been able to give your opinions about what he did. You have been able to look at it, you know, with the eye of all these viewers, all the audience here, and give your own opinions. And some of your opinions, I must say, I was very impressed with, because they're opinions that are, when a writer is writing, they can just also sometimes be very conscious of how they're writing or what they're saying, so that they're not able to push the character out that they're writing about and disappear themselves. There's no writer at all, it's just about this person. As you will see in A Mirror to the Blind, there's no me at all. I haven't even had the audacity to put my photograph over my introduction as the writer, because the man is too great. And I see that in your book too, which I just told you a little while ago, because before endorsing something about Mr. Eidi, I wanted to be very sure, and I read it very carefully. And I felt that your recognition of the man is what we as Pakistanis need to recognize. You were able to bring out things about Mr. Eidi that are relevant to us. He cannot say them, so they're not in his book. They're not in A Mirror to the Blind.
All the other people that are
Yes.
have been inspired by Eddie. Of course, he and his wife and his family are the center of the book. They are at the center of this.
But you've been able
inspiration.
to.
But it was possible for
Yes.
me to be able to talk to so many in his centers who are his followers, and he needs even more followers. It was inspiring to see so many volunteers in the Eddie centers who have been themselves stricken by misfortune, by illness, by family problems, who recognize that basic human pain in themselves and come to the Eidi centers to give back what they have at one time received by this family project that Eddie has set up. I would like that the book could be seen as a sort of mosaic, a mosaic in which the main theme is certainly the presence of this formidable couple, but the other parts of the mosaic are all the voices of Pakistan, voices to be proud of, the voices of the doctors, of the volunteers, of the people who give so generously to the Eidi Foundation, the people who support him, and I would like everybody to recognize the values that he supports and the values that all the people around him support. It's
But how do we do that with his book and your book? I mean, this is all there is?
no,
About
it's not,
a man
it's not,
like
it's
this?
Not, it's not all there is. I think our books are the basis. His action and the action he has inspired around him is what we should look at, and in connection with ourselves. We are maybe small people, we will not be able to put up something as big as he has, nothing with the constancy, with the sort of long time involvement that he has been able to give to his country. But each one of us can do at least a little bit. We can make an effort to get out of our small comfort zone, and with the abilities that we have, with our relative competences, we can all be inspired and give and set up little actions of solidarity, of education, of struggle towards inequality.
But Lorenza, do you feel...
May I just interrupt over here? I think you've been saying, how do we spread the message further?
Yeah.
So why not have Eidi Saab on the stage as well? It helps to spread the message for this gathering today. I think we should have him on stage. And then you can include him in your conversation as well. Because I think, both of you ladies have written in
Yeah.
detail but it's time we acknowledge the gentleman himself.
I think we should stand.
May I ask the audience to please stand to give an ovation to Idi Saab.
आप बैठे कहाँ
मैं बैठ
मैं बोल देता हूँ कुछ मैं तो इंसान हूँ, इंसान बनाने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ। हर मजहब का पहलू इंसानियत है। जब इंसानियत नहीं है
May I also ask His Excellency the Italian Ambassador to come on stage, please?
शुक्रिया आपका। मैं पाकिस्तान में जब भी आया उसी वक्त से मैं अपने को इंसान बनाने की कोशिश की। इंसान बनाने का कोशिश कर रहा हूँ। सारे मजहब इंसानियत सिखाते हैं, हमने छोड़ दिया है। इसकी वजह से तफरीकों में बटे हैं और अजब अजब दुकानें खोलकर इंसानियत का इस्तेसाल कर रहे हैं। हमें गुर्बत ख़त्म करनी है, जुल्म ख़त्म करना है, तो उसका तरीका एक ही है कि अल्लाह के करीब जाना है तो इंसानियत को अपनाओ। जब इंसानियत को अपना लोगे तो सारे फसाद ख़त्म हो जाएंगे। टैक्स चोरी छोड़ देनी चाहिए, ये पूरे गरीबों का हक है। टैक्स चोरी बुनियाद यही है। हम अपने मजहब के अंदर भी कोई ना कोई चैरिटी हैं, उसको पे अमल करना चाहिए। मुसलमानों के पास ज़कात का है। तीसरा सादगी, हमने सादगी को छोड़ा है और बर्बाद हो गए। हमेशा मजहब सादगी सिखाता है, सच्चाई सिखाता है और मोहब्बत सिखाता है। हम तीनों चीज़ों को छोड़कर आर्टिफिशियल ज़िंदगी के अंदर गुजार रहे हैं। मैं सियाचिन से लेकर नगर पार तलक, लाहौर से लेकर काबुल तलक तमाम सेंटर हैं, मुझे कोई तकलीफ नहीं हुई। मैं बगैर परमिशन इस मुल्क में काम कर रहा हूँ। नेक काम ही खुद परमिशन है, मुझे किसी ने नहीं परेशान किया। मैं जब पाकिस्तान में आया, मेरे माँ बाप मुझे कहते थे कि किसी के पास चंदा मांगने नहीं जाना, इस कौम को देने वाली बनाना। आज ये कौम इतना अच्छा दे रही है मुझे कि मैं क्या बताऊं। मैं रोड पे बैठा हूँ तो फटे टूटे कपड़े वाले, टैक्सी ड्राइवर, बस कंडक्टर मुझे आकर नोटे देते हैं। गरीब रहा, गरीबों से मोहब्बत की, गरीबों के हुकूक के लिए लड़ रहा हूँ, तो अल्लाह ने मुझे कामयाब किया। आप यही सीखेंगे, यही करेंगे तो कामयाब। हम सुबह उठते ही, मैंने ज़िंदगी में चाय नहीं पिया, तंबाकू नोशी नहीं, 2 कपड़े के जोड़े हैं, एक जोड़ा पहना हुआ है, 4-5 महीने बदली करता हूँ। मेरी बीवी, मुझे खुदा को ढूंढने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, मेरी बीवी ने मुझे इतना मेरे लिए काम किया है। मेरी औलाद भी मेरे साथ सब काम कर रहे हैं। फैसल एदी पूरा संभाल के बैठा हुआ है। कुबरा एदी पूरे मुल्क के यतीम खाने को कवर कर रही है। दौरा करके आई, बलूचिस्तान घूमा, खैबर पुख्तनिस्तान घूमा, सब जगह पे गए, लेकिन किसी ने भी कोई उंगली उठा के नहीं देखा। बस अल्लाह की मदद ज़रूरी है। हमने सब कुछ पैदा किया तंग नजरी की वजह से। तंग नजरी छोड़नी चाहिए, दूसरे का भला का सोचना चाहिए, और यही हम रहेंगे तो हमारी ज़िंदगी सही और कामयाब ज़िंदगी है। शुक्रिया। चलेगा?
We'll just finish by asking Lorenza Rapani, the author of this book that is being launched today, to read out something that she had written, which she's not been able to say. Lorenza?
I will not, in fact, read the whole speech. I would like to just pick up the words Eddie said and remind myself and this collectivity and our humanity at large that Eddie, in fact, puts into practice what so many of us would like to do and what so many, in fact, theoretically say. I particularly admire the Nobel Prize winner in economics in 1998, Amartya Sen. And I am always stricken by how much his words resound with the actions of Mr. Eddy. He says, for instance, it is our common belonging to humanity that is put badly into question every time that the various identities in the world, in every human group, are unified by a classification system that pretends to be universal. We can hope in harmony in the world only if we develop a clearer understanding and acceptance of the plurality of human identity, together with the recognition that these pluralities are transversal and the only antidote to impenetrable separation and division. I think this is the core value that Eddy represents and that we should all take with us in our pockets and put it into action. I don't want to bore you with the history of the book, how we wrote it. It's a collaborative work and what we've tried to do. I will only conclude with the words of another very important Pakistani Nobel Prize winner, the physicist Abdus Salam, who worked closely with Italy as well, so there we have another important connection. He helped set up a center for international physicists in Trieste. He is a renowned character in the scientific world, and he said, progress begins with the belief that what is necessary is possible. And I think nobody else at the moment, like Eddy, represents this possibility.
Thank you, Lorenza. I think with that we will come to the end of this book launch. But what I'd like to say to all our audience here, this book is now available at our stall, OUP, bookstall outside. Please get yourself copies. Lorenza will be at the back of this room and she'll be happy to sign for those of you who want. And I'm sure if Idi Saab is up to it, he might just give a scribble on the book if if he feels that he has the strength to deal with that. So thank you all for coming. This is a great privilege to have Idi Saab here today. Lorenza, His Excellency, the Italian Ambassador, our MD, Hamina Sayed, and of course, the Honorable First Lady of Punjab, Temina Durrani. Thank you.